Hey, this is Sam Graham and James Meldrum. We'll be talking about network organizations. Let's get started.
So we have the network organizations are usually larger companies that bring smaller companies in order to change the direction of the company, or in some ways to not have to change but bring in a different product that they wouldn't normally develop. Large companies tend to, what they'll do is they'll order the small companies to build a product, and then they will be able to implement it into their own product. Simple networks tend to be things like distribution chains and supply chains. If the larger company needs a word processor software and they don't make that, they can ask a smaller company to provide that for them. Complex networks are situations where the larger company has either strong contracts or absorbs the smaller company in order to make those changes.
So some examples of this are Microsoft. They try and stay innovative by using their products as small businesses. So for instance, your Internet Explorer group is going to act like its own business relative to the Windows group. And so they try and stay innovative by splitting them up. And you've got other examples where a company buys another one, such as AppJet. It was purchased by Google, and they used AppJet's innovations to create Google Docs. And then you also have places like Apple, where they need to make hardware, but they're traditionally a software company, so they use Foxconn in China to make their iPhones. And those are just some examples of how network organizations are used today in the world.
A lot of the benefits for this involve letting larger companies stay innovative in their environment. By being able to call on smaller companies to help generate software that they don't normally make or hardware that they don't normally make, they're able to stay competitive within the business environment. This is also advantage to the smaller companies because they have an opportunity to work with and in some ways compete with larger companies for business. This also allows larger companies to remain modular. They don't have to keep on they don't have to keep on projects and smaller companies that have finished their jobs in order to reduce costs in the long run.
So some of the pros that go along with these benefits: you do not need to restructure for any of your new systems. And then your training costs have already happened with that contractor. So if they make widgets that you're using, they've already been trained on it, they already have used it, and they can either help you out with it or just make you have that benefit from it automatically. And then after that, you also have more innovative solutions, such as with AppJet and Google purchasing them.
A lot of the advantages come in reduced costs, lower startup costs, because you don't have to bring in a whole new team and train them to do what you want. It removes the technical problems of having to include new groups into the core system. So that way you don't have to worry about getting new machines. You don't have to worry about updating the process to allow a new team to access your data. The modularity that we discussed before, you hire a company, a smaller company, to work for you as long as you need them. So that way you don't have to worry about keeping the costs up by hiring new developers.
Some of the costs that do occur when you use this form of organization is you're going to have to pay for communication equipment and programs. And what happens with that is you've got your company and you're dealing with someone in China, let's say you're Apple, you're going to need some method of communicating with them. And that can be pretty costly. You either need to fly people out there, or you need to have a really good technological device to say, hey, I'm going to teleconference with you and make sure the audio quality is there, that they can see you, and that it's flawless and fast and there's no lag. There's also legal costs for contracts. If you contract with someone, you need to make sure everything's going to be good, everything's solid. There's ways to back out if the contractor can't fulfill their responsibilities. And additionally, there's the cost of purchasing other companies, again, like with AppJet.
A lot of the cons in this come from sending your projects to a different company. You don't have control over project implementation anymore. Once you hand the project over to the other company, you don't get to make the changes to their system. They have their system in place. They're going to generate the software using their method. You're also going to be working on their timetable. You might be able to use a contract to generate a timetable, but if there's unseen problems, if there's issues with communication, they will have a way to be able to say, we need more time to work on the given system. Then you also have larger costs when bringing those software systems back into the company. Integration testing and making sure that all the pieces work together is going to be where the cost comes in.
All right, so some of the disadvantages that you might get, especially with the software industry, is you're going to have a lot more difficulty changing that contracted software. Your experts aren't the ones that made the software in the first place. Everyone programs differently. Your communication problems and delay, that's a disadvantage over approaching these problems in a different manner, not using a network organization. And additionally, you can get stuck with 5 contractors, like we've discussed in other classes. You've got the FBI case file, where they were stuck with a bad contractor. The contractor was very tricky, and they had to purchase a useless system. And you can't have that in a network organization. And so you also need to watch out for that as well.
So what we recommend when using a network organization, normally you're going to need to be a larger company. So that way you can foot the costs if there's a problem. Smaller companies can depend on each other to also generate a network system. But if there's any problems with the cost, you might have some problems keeping the network system running. Using specialized help is one of the great reasons to use the network organization. If your company has no one that has the domain knowledge that you need to make your system successful, outsourcing to another company that has your domain knowledge will be a great benefit cost-wise because you don't have to train anyone, and also time-wise because they already have their systems in place to use that domain knowledge. You want to avoid using network organizations any time where communication will be a problem. If you don't have anyone that speaks the language to your outsourced company, you might have some difficulties in using them in a network organization for a consistent amount of time. Also, being able to have consistent communication goes right along with any kind of language barrier. You also want to avoid this when you have very specific needs that need to be met. If you have certain requirements from your stakeholder, you don't want to depend on a subcontractor or a contractor to generate using those same requirements the way that you see they need to be done.
All right, here's our sources. Thank you for your time. Any questions, I guess, could be emailed to us. And that's it.